Dude, I know. Moving the 3D camera inside of After Effects can be annoying as hell. But honestly, it's a lot easier than you think. See, the problem is that a lot of the controllers for the 3D camera are hidden underneath keyboard shortcuts that you might not even know about. Yeah, wow, it suddenly got really dark as shit over here. So I want to run you through some of the basics of the movement so it can be easy peasy, lemon squeezy. The video you're about to watch, by the way, is part of my animation mastery program, where I go a lot more in depth on how to use the 3D camera to make some more advanced visuals so you can karate chop the shit out of your competition. I also want to show you my favorite scripts and techniques so that using the 3D camera is going to be easy peasy. Alright bro, we get it. I also go into topics like compositing, texturing, and even how to come up with unlimited creative ideas so that you're never stuck, and a bunch of different other topics. But here, if you're interested, there's going to be a link in the description that you can click, and you can get 50% off until August 17th. That's the last day. After that, price is going up. Without further ado, here are some of the basics of the 3D camera inside of After Effects. Dun, 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 dun. Before we even get started with the 3D camera, I want you to do something real quick. I want you to go to After Effects, Settings, and let's go to General. In here, you're going to see this button. Default spatial interpolation to linear. You need to make sure this is checked. If it's not checked, what's going to happen is when you're using the 3D camera, you're going to notice it'll create some weird movements that you never placed there. And that's because the interpolation of the camera is being affected to not be linear, but rather create some Bezier curves. And I understand maybe that doesn't make a lot of sense, but all you need to know is that you have to make sure this is checked so you don't get any weird random movements that you didn't anticipate for. So just check this, press OK. Let's go ahead and create a new composition. So new composition, and let's name this tutorial. And we're going to make it 3840 by 2160, which is 4K. For the frame rate, you can do either 30 or 25, but in this case, we're just going to stick to 60. Let's press OK. Great. So now we have the composition in place. Let's go ahead and throw in some assets so that we can start playing around with the 3D camera. So I'm going to go up to the folder over here. So original, and then we're just going to throw in this Doge face right here. Why not? And then let's go ahead and throw in this background. And by the way, you're going to have this project file below this video. So if you want to follow along, go ahead and download that below. Now let's go ahead and drop this grid to the back behind the Doge. And what we're going to do from here is we're going to create a 3D camera. So right here, you can just right click, new, and you just create a camera. Alternatively, you can also go up here to layer, new, and we can create a camera here. Or you can just press this keyboard shortcut that you're seeing right here. And that's usually the easiest way and the way that I do it. So we can just press that keyboard shortcut, and you should be seeing the keyboard shortcuts right here as well, by the way. So if you're ever curious about what I pressed, they'll be down there on the bottom left. So what is the 3D camera? The 3D camera in After Effects lets you move through your scene like a real camera would. This is going to allow you to create a lot of depth in your animations, and honestly, just some really cool motion. Now, there's a lot of controllers that appear when you create a 3D camera, but you don't really need to focus on every single one of them. Let's actually start easy. So we're going to start off talking about the nodes of the camera. So if you click here, you'll see that you have a 1-node camera and a 2-node camera. Let's start off with a 1-node camera. And here, for now, let's just go ahead with a preset. We'll do 50 millimeters. Press OK. And the very first thing we're going to do, so it's easier for you to follow what's going on, is we're going to switch to a 2-view camera. Now, for some reason, it's being blocked here. So all I'm going to do is I'm going to drag this workspace a little bit like that. So now we get the full view. And by the way, if you're not seeing this exact same workspace that I have, all you have to do is go to Window, Workspace, and then currently I'm on the All Panels one. Cool. So let's go ahead and switch to a 2-camera view. And the second camera, what's happening is we're looking at everything from a top view. See, like right here, you see you have all of the different views. So right now, if I was to click on this layer, well, nothing happens because it's not set in 3D yet. So let's go ahead and make these layers 3D. The way you do that is by just pressing this little icon. So you see below, there's the 3D icon. You just press the square, so you make it 3D, and do the same for the background as well. Now they're both in 3D. And as you can see from the top view, you're actually looking at these layers, but they're all flat, which is why they look like one line right here. Now, instead of the top view, I'd actually like to get a different view. So I'm going to click and make sure I click on this side, right? Depending on which side you click on, you're going to have a different camera view. So if we click here, you'll see that it switches to top. And if we click here, you'll see that we switch to the active camera, which is the final view that's going to come up when you render the scene. So let's go ahead and click on the right, and we'll switch this to a custom view camera. And the custom view camera is basically you can set it up however you want, and it'll stay that way. So right now what we're looking at is just a picture of the Doge with the background, but they're all flat. They're on each other. So what we want to do is we actually want to push the background a little bit in set space. This is so that we can create a parallax effect on this. So I'm going to choose the background right here, and you can see these little arrows pop up. This is going to allow you to control how to move the object. So you can see I'm moving it up and down, left and right. If I choose this arrow, and you can choose it over here too on the left, so you can see we're moving it around. Right now you'll see that it's lagging a bit, by the way. So we're going to tone down the quality. Let's do half for now. And now that should look a lot smoother. Okay, but what we want to do is push it in set space. So you have two options. You can either do it with the arrows right here, and as you can see, it's being pushed back. So this is why having multiple views is important, because over here on the left, it just looks like it's scaling down, not actually being pushed back in space. However, because we have the second view, you can clearly see that we are moving it back in space. The same can be said when you look at it from the top view. So if we zoom out, see now the background is over here, while the picture of the Doge, if you click on it here on the layers, you'll see that it's more on the front. So if we choose the background, we can choose how far back we want it to go. And again, it looks like it's scaling here, but it's actually being pushed in space. You can see the set value changing here, by the way. And you can also see it if you go over here and you press P for position. This is the value that we're changing. So we have three different values. We have the X-axis, we have the Y-axis, and then the Z axis. And I just say Z, but I just mean the letter. I can't say the letter for some reason. So you're gonna hear me either say Z or just space. You're pushing this scene in space because this is literally set space. And so we're gonna push it around until we get it until about 2000 and Z. So you can see right now it's 2009. That's fine. So now if you look down below a little bit, you can see this cone right here. So this at the very end is the 3D camera. So if you zoom in, and by the way, I'm moving around with space on the keyboard, just hold space. But you can see we have the camera right here. This also comes with the same controllers that I just showed you with the arrows. So you can actually move forward with the camera and it'll show on the final composition, right? On the active camera view. Now, the very first thing you'll see is that we have a bit of a parallax effect. And again, that's because we pushed the background back in set space instead of just scaling it down. If I was to move it on the X-axis, you can see there's still parallax going on. Now, you can also rotate the camera by pressing the green circle like that. Now, you'll see that anything that I'm doing here is actually being affected over here on the camera layer. So if we drop down on the transform properties, anything that we change over here will show up over here. And so this isn't the only way to control the camera. You can also control it with the numbers if that's a little more comfortable for you. So you can see we can move it like that. Set space. We can move the position up and down, left and right, etc., etc. Now, the reason why this is called a one-node camera is because it only has one point of control, which is the camera position. So going back to After Effects, the only way we can affect this camera is by pushing it forward and back, left and right, and then rotating it on itself. You can also rotate it up and down. So if we go to the left view, here's the camera. If you choose the red circle, you can push it up and down like that. The way you can think about it is imagine you're walking forward with a flashlight, always pointing in front of you. Okay, now let's switch back to the top view. So let's go ahead and change to a two-node camera so you can see the difference. Go ahead and double click on the camera. And then from here, just switch to a two-node. And you'll see immediately something changed in our composition. A little dot appeared right here. So if we switch back, one-node camera, that's what it looks like. Two-node camera, a little dot appears. That dot is known as the point of interest. And it's where your camera is going to be focusing on at all times. So let's go ahead and press OK. And now let's say we want to change the position like we were doing before. We're going to go over here to the position properties and let's just move it to the right. And you'll see that even though I'm moving it to the right, the camera stays focused on the subject, which is the Doge in this example. Now, one quick trick, if you want to move really fast or really slow as you're doing this, hold Shift on your keyboard And you'll see that now I'm moving really, really fast on both sides. Now, if you want to move really slow so that you're able to do those micro adjustments, while you're holding this and dragging the number, hold Command on your keyboard or Control if you're on Windows, and it'll make it very, very slow, as you can see. This is great for when you're doing any micro adjustments on your camera. Okay, let's switch it back to position. Now, one thing you'll notice immediately is that if we were to move it with these controls that I just showed, something happens. The point of interest actually moves with the camera. Now, this can be helpful for certain scenes, but let's say you don't want that. You want it to stick to the original position that it's in. Let's go ahead and Command Z that to go back. And now, let's say we want to move it here. Instead of just clicking and holding and just dragging like this, what you're going to do is, as you're about to hold in, hold Command on your keyboard, and now the point of interest stays stuck to the layer or wherever it was initially in. So you can see I can then move it around while holding the Command button on my keyboard, and it'll stay on the subject. Pretty cool, right? You can also do the same if you're zooming in. So if you're dragging the camera forward, you'll see the point of interest moves forward as well. If you don't want that, again, just hold Command, and you can zoom in while the point of interest stays where it was. This is very useful if you want to like zoom in a lot. So let's say like right here, it's a little exaggerated, but just to prove my point. Then from here, you want to move it side to side for some reason, right? You want to do this. See, you're now able to do it easily because the point of interest stayed in place. If, let's say, the point of interest had moved all the way over here, so you can see now the point of interest is on the background rather than on the subject. So now when you move the camera, see, the focus is not necessarily the subject, it's the background. So for the 2-node camera, it has 2 points. The camera position, which is where the camera is at, that being node 1, and the point it's looking at, which is node 2. That is the point of interest. You can move the camera and aim it separately, depending on where the point of interest is at. So you can think about it like you're holding a selfie stick with a phone recording you. In this case, you are the point of interest, meaning this is you right here. Because if you move the phone around, you're still the main point of focus on the camera. Okay, let's talk about the controllers a little bit more for the camera. So again, I've just showed you that anything that you change over here, it'll change over here on the left on the bottom transform properties. Point of interest, as we just mentioned, this focuses on where the camera is looking at. You can change this manually right here so that you can look, let's say for some reason you want the point of focus to be down here. Now when you move the camera, it'll stay focused on that point. It's Command Z. You can also push it forward like that in set space. So now if we push it way forward for some reason, now when we go ahead and change the position, you can see that it's focusing way behind there. Now the orientation is basically just the rotation of the camera. So if you want to change it, you can change it like that. And maybe it's not super visible in the top view. So let's go ahead and change to the left view. So now we're looking at everything from the left side of the composition. And so if we were to change the orientation, you can see it's looking up and down. And then if we change the second value, we're moving left and right, which will be more visible from the top view. There you go, just like that. And then the last value is just rotating on itself. So just like that. And then you also have the rotation controls down here. So you can see, you just change them and it'll change over here as well. Now, if you don't want to have a 2-view mode like this, let's say we just have a 1-view mode and we're going to zoom back in. If you want to control the camera yourself without having to rely on controllers and things like that, well, you can go up here. Up here, we have 3 different camera controls. The first one being orbit. So if you choose that, you can see that we can orbit around the scene. It's Command Z that. If we choose the pan tool, well, that just means we can change the position of the camera like this. So if we look at the 2-view camera, so you can see what's happening. Actually, let's switch to a custom view. So now when we change it, you can see we're changing the position of the camera along with the point of interest. Now, if you choose the dolly controller over here, well, that just means that you can zoom in like that. A very easy way to switch between different camera controls is by just hitting C on your keyboard. So if I press C, you see that I'm switching throughout them. So just like that, you can kind of orbit and then move the camera around and then dolly in and then again, move, orbit around and then move the camera. Now, there's even an easier way to move the camera around. And that's by holding Option on your keyboard, or Alt if you're using Windows. So if you hold Option, you'll see that this camera icon comes up. And this means you can now switch between the different camera controls with your mouse button. So if we were to hold the Option button and then press the right click on the mouse, you see that we're now dollying on the scene. We're zooming in and out. Now again, if you hold the Option key on your keyboard and you press the left button instead, right? So the left click on your mouse, you can now orbit around the scene. And then the last one is the middle mouse button. So if you hold that, you can pan around the scene like this. So again, all of this is while holding the Option key on the keyboard. And that makes it so that I'm able to just kind of move around the scene very easily, just like that. Right? So never forget these controllers. These are going to be very, very useful. These controllers also work for your custom views, by the way. So again, if you remember, we're currently on the active camera view. So if you see that, active camera, camera 1. But if we click here, now we're on the custom view. So here, with the same controllers I just showed you, we can actually move the scene around to whatever we want it to look like. So that way we can get a better look at what it is that we want to see. And this is not going to affect the final render. This is just for you to look at different angles. Now, these camera controls actually have sub options, which I want to talk about real quick, because there's a chance that you're going to try to move the camera and something's going to feel off. It's not being controlled in the way that you actually want it to control itself. So let's say, for example, I want to orbit around the Doge. If I click here with the orbit tool, well, yeah, cool. We're focusing on the Doge. Let's Command set and go back. Now, let's say I don't click on the Doge. And while I have the orbit camera, instead I click on the background by accident. So if we were to orbit, now you see the Doge is not the point of interest anymore. It's the background in this case. This is a lot more noticeable if we were to really push the background far back. So let's say we just push it way, way back. And now you're seeing these black spots. So let's go ahead and scale it up. So you can scale it up over here. And notice that I'm scaling it up. I'm not pushing it forward in set space. So again, let's go to the top view. Right here, I'm just scaling it up in place. I'm not pushing it forward in set space. This is just so it fills up the overall composition. So cool, let's go back to the camera and see right here. You can see the point of interest is actually the background, not the Doge. Now let's say you don't want that to happen. You want to be able to rotate specifically on the point of interest. So let's push the point of interest forward, and we're gonna put it so it's on the Doge layer. And you want it so that when you're orbiting, no matter where you click, it's always going to focus on the Doge. One thing you can do is if you go over here to the orbit controls, if you hold the click, you're going to get a few other options. Now, option number 1, as you can see, it's orbiting around the cursor tool, meaning wherever you click, it's going to try to orbit around that. Option number 2 is going to be around the scene. And this can work depending on where you're at. So around the scene is basically where the starting point of the scene is at. So when we started making the scene, we haven't really moved the Doge anywhere. But let's say we were to move it to the left and we're to orbit, you'll see that it's going to still orbit around that point, that starting point. Now the last one, which is probably the most important, is orbit around the camera point of interest. POI is point of interest. And so now, no matter where you click, let's say we click on the background and we try to orbit with the background, it doesn't matter because we're orbiting around the point of interest only. And so you can click wherever you want, but the point of interest will still stay as the main focus of attention. The other camera controls also have different options, so I suggest you take a look at it and get familiar with them. And if you're noticing that you're trying to use a certain control and it's not working out for some reason, it's acting strangely, there's a chance that you need to look at these options and hit the one that's appropriate for what you're trying to do. Hope you enjoyed this mini course, and when you're ready to take the next step, I will see you inside of Animation Mastery. Again, that's my program, which is in the description. It's going to be 50% off until August 17th. So go check it out before there's problems. I know where you live. So first link in the description. Yeah, I'll see you there. All right. Take it easy.